talk about different materials that you might use for your landscape. It's almost spring. It certainly feels like spring in Southern California right now. So a lot of people are getting excited about being out in their yard, which is great. So I have nothing totally against lava rock. It's not my favorite, but some people love it, and good for them if they love it. So it is, a highly angular rock. It works great as a fill for your yard. It's very low maintenance. Obviously, you cannot kill it. You can crush it if you drive over it too much or something like that. But it also makes a good material for inside fire pits, as the vapors are able to escape quicker than they pop. So when rocks get wet and the moisture is deep within the rock, and you turn on a fire, if you throw it in the fire, turn on the fire, if those vapors can't escape easily, that's where you get the rocks popping. So lava rock is good for fire pits. Mexican beach pebbles are not typically, and if you do, you just gotta you really just shouldn't. But you got to be careful after a rain or something like that. I have a fire, like a wood burning fireplace, fire pit at my place up in Northern California, and we just grabbed any old rocks. They're boulders, and those boulders, they were fine for a while, and then we really started throwing a lot of fire. We used the boulders for a fire pit. We threw a lot of wood there, and the fire got really hot, and they kept just popping off parts of the rock. And that again is just because there's too much moisture in the rock, and the vapors are wanting to escape faster then they're able to, so they just pop the rock. And that is why lava rock is a good choice for fire pits, because the water can escape fairly quickly. So this of course is the red. I'm sure you've all seen the black option as well. So again, not my favorite stone. I don't know, it feels a little rough, feels a little dated, but again, if it's your thing, it's your thing. You can go for it. So I mean, I've seen cool landscapes with all products, but I don't tend to landscape with lava rock typically. And also, it just kind of depends on what's available in your area too. So you're going to see landscapes reflect what is easily shipped to the area, but also what thrives. So rocks as a ground cover, it's a really good choice, again, because super low maintenance and they don't die. They don't take water, which is great, but they do heat up the soil if you're covering everything. So when we're talking about trying to keep your landscape alive and thriving, it's usually not my recommendation to cover it with rocks from the front door to the driveway, or in concrete, or in artificial turf. It just creates way too much heat. So ideally, you want to have a variety of things. You want to have some plants that shade some areas. If you want to have a tree that can cast some shade, especially if you live in an area that's kind of warm, having a variety is definitely the best bet. And it's better for the environment generally too, to have some areas. Now, depending on what spectrum you are on, being an environmentalist, that really varies a lot. I think a lot of people want to be more environmentalist than they are in their landscape until they realize what it looks like. So there's a happy medium for everybody there. But I think the biggest challenge for people when they're like, oh, I want to go all native, I want to do the best thing, I'm like, well, that requires potentially keeping parts of your yard completely open for the bees to make their nest. Most of the bees in the United States actually live in the ground, which a lot of people don't know. And then, of course, a lot of animals and insects love the dead foliage in your yard in the late winter and early spring. So keeping all that stuff, which is counter to what we want to present in our front yards or in our landscapes in general, because people want really manicured looks, keeping up with the Joneses, making sure that there's space. Is looking great. And oftentimes what's best for the environment is not aesthetics first. It could just be changing and what people think aesthetically looks good too. There could be a cultural shift, which I think we're starting to see a little bit. But generally, for the majority of my clients, they're going to want some sort of combination of, hey, I want to be a good steward, but also, do I have to keep all the dead plants in my yard? And luckily, you don't have to. And I think it's good to consider, it's very important to consider how your landscape affects your neighborhood and how it affects the environment around you, especially if you're in one of those zones that has not been completely mowed over by new construction. If you actually have some older trees or, some life left to your soil and your landscape, those are all great things to preserve if you already have them. However, a lot of people living in suburbia, they're inheriting areas that have imported soils, all the topsoil's gone, and you're really starting from scratch. So the best that you can, you want to bring life back to your soil. And so I love using products that help boost the soil growth generally as well. So you have that mixture of growth in your soil to help your plants thrive. But I also really love hardscapes. As a landscape contractor, I think that having a combination of both is great. And so I kind of separate like how people are going to use spaces depending on how much hardscape and how much softscape. So every yard is unique, and every person's preferences are also going to change depending on like what's most important for them. So I would say that concrete and artificial turf and rocks, that's all hardscape to me. Those are non-living things. They're great for patios, they're great for fire pits, they're great for extended areas of living. And then we have lawns, which are controversial. Hold on, Junko, I will get to that question in a minute. But lawns are, kind of controversial because everyone's like, oh, pull out the lawn. Sure, you can pull out the lawn, but if you're going to replace it with artificial turf, I don't think you're really helping anything out. I much prefer my clients to keep a natural lawn and maintain a lawn that's something that you're going to use, whether their kids are using it or their dogs are using it. I think that's a great use of space. Not only does it sequester carbon, but it also holds moisture in the soil, and there's also life beneath it. So if you want to get really creative, you can use a lawn alternative, or you can mix in other things in your lawn, having a mixed lawn, and that might make it more biodiverse. But don't let people convince you that you don't want your lawn. If you really love your lawn, I think there's a way that you can do it responsibly. And let's see here we go. We have a massive dead tree in our front yard that we don't know what to do with. It's tall enough that we have hung bird feeders from it. So that's a really good question, because it depends on what perspective, what your values are in a way, because you could leave the tree. Dead trees are great when you have dead tree hollows. Animals make their burrows in there. Parts of the branches fall off and decompose. It's a natural thing. But when it's in your front yard, you got to ask yourself, does that benefit my family? Also, could this fall on my house? So you need to take those considerations. I definitely would recommend consulting with an arborist. A lot of them will do it for free, and they can at least tell you, like, this tree is a danger to your house. Maybe it's worth taking out, or you know what? It's fine. Leave it. Decorate it. It might be something you check in with every once in a while, depending. Like, what you want to be careful of is the roots rotting out, and if it's a big tree, falling and damaging somebody's car or your house or something like that. But I personally, I think it would just depend on what the tree is. You're welcome to, like, I don't know if you can DM on YouTube. I don't know how that works. I'm new to like YouTube lives and stuff like that, but I'm on Instagram, and you can send me a photo of your tree and I will give you my opinion if you want. It's just Sara Bendrick, no H, Sara, Sara Bendrick on Instagram, and you can send me a photo of your tree and I'd be happy to tell you what I think of it. But oftentimes I think deadwood is super fun to work with. So even in my parents' front yard, we have a big log that was taken out, burned in one of the California fires, and it was brought in by one of the guys helping us with the pond in my parents' front yard. And we ended up taking this log and putting it in the pond, and I just think it's a great way to recycle it. I also take, interesting pieces of lumber too, and you can tuck succulents in it. There's a lot of things that you can do. Now, when a tree is newly dead, it's going to absorb a bunch of nitrogen from the soil. So that's one thing you want to be careful of. You don't really want to plant a newly dead tree. Or sometimes the mulch, when you freshly mulch something, it's going to take the nitrogen out of the top few inches if it's really fresh, but it does put it back over time. So I just wouldn't plant like your 4-inch annuals in brand new fresh mulch that's going to want to suck all that nitrogen out for itself to decompose and then pushes it back. But that might be too late for those annuals, if you know what I mean. But cool, let's see. Aaron, we use a smaller size lava rock in bonsai pots. Oh yeah, that's great. And like, I don't love to crap on materials because everybody really has their own preference. And I think there's great ways of using materials in creative ways. I just personally am not a big fan of like the front to back covered in lava rock. I'm sure it's an affordable option in certain areas. And sometimes that's what it comes down to. What can you do to maintain your space and keep it affordable? Let's see, I did want to show you guys one thing because I think a lot of people, when it comes to like job site materials, I'm going to transition here, but if you guys have other questions, just let me know. I wanted to talk about playground sand. It's not the right sand for building construction in any way. Like, unless you have a playground and you have kids playing in it, that's what it's meant for. Or you want to put like a fake beach in front of your pond or something like that. So let me show you this playground sand. It's beautiful. It's everything that you would expect. I don't know if you guys can see as well as me, but it is so round. It almost looks like round little marbles when you get really close to it. Playground sand does not compact very well. And so therefore it does not make a good base material for your pavers or other hardscape structures. They sell masonry sand, and so if you're a DIYer and trying to do your own patio or something like that, you really want to get masonry sand. And let me show you the difference here. Look how flat that lays. It's already laying so flat for about the same amount of material. It's a lot more angular here. It will compact so much better, and also the moisture content of your base material is going to matter when you are setting up your base. I don't know if you can see that shimmer right now, but I just threw that. Yeah, so I don't want to breathe this stuff. There's a lot of silica in sand and stuff like that you want to be careful of if you're working with it a lot. But anyways, I'm probably going to get back to work here, but if you guys had any more questions, feel free to let me know. I'm starting to try to do more lives where they make sense. So thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate it.